When I was in middle school, my mom, who was a teacher, was honored on a national talk show. Years earlier, she'd helped a young student through an existential crisis. That student nominated her, and for one shining moment in a decades-long career, she got some public recognition. It is not an exaggeration to say that teachers save lives. They do. They're the most important adults in our kids' lives after the parents. And after 20 years of seeing what social media has done to young people, we're now facing even more powerful technologies. Teachers are on the front lines now again, and they're trying to figure out how to use these tools responsibly and safely, while their jobs are only getting more and more complicated. I think about this all the time. I've got kids myself. And that is why I'm so excited about today's guest. He spends his time helping teachers make sense of technology, especially AI, in ways that are practical, ethical, and sustainable. Tom Driscoll is the CEO of EdTechTeacher and a longtime leader in technology-enabled professional learning for K-12 educators. He's formerly a district director of digital learning and has led large-scale professional development, rapid cycle ed tech pilots, and coaching programs. Tom's also published widely on educational technology. Welcome to the Learning Experience Ops Show, Tom Driscoll.
Thanks so much, Jason. Truly happy to be here today.
So glad we're doing this. So let's jump in first with a couple of quick lightning round questions to kind of get us to the ball. I know you're a sports guy.
Let's do it.
All right. So if you have to give a short elevator pitch to somebody about what you do, and you've got 30 seconds or less, what is that pitch?
I'll do it in 5 seconds. I help teachers.
Lovely.
There you go. I help teachers. I help them do their job because they need support, and what they do is so valuable. And that's what we do. Our mission is about helping teachers in the classroom. And that's our core vision.
Beautiful.
Yep.
All right. Well, maybe this next one is easy. Next lightning round question. What do you love the most about your work?
So I love the fact that I can not only help teachers, but help them experiment and be creative. And that's what I love more than anything is that educational technology has unlocked a lot of educators' creativity, and not just with projects, but their own instructional design. So I just love the fact that we can design with them as creators.
When you are absolutely dialed in at work, what are you most likely to be doing?
Typically, I love to create myself. So I love to design and create resources for teachers, but also I love collaborating with others to create. So creating with other teachers, with other professionals, that is what I truly dive into and love.
And what event or moment inspired you to do what you do?
It's actually my second year teaching. I was first getting into educational technology. At the time, it was a projection screen and with slides, and everybody was like, "Ooh, wow!" But I was like, "All right, just something as simple as not turning my back to the class and writing on the board." I was like, "Wow, just that tiny little shift can change how I teach a class," and that kind of got me hooked. And then I just took off from there.
These have all been pretty positive. This one is maybe a little less positive. What are you most anxious about for the future?
I am anxious about, frankly, the profession. I think the teaching profession, as you alluded to in the beginning, is in some ways not supported as it should. Teachers are not necessarily supported as much as they can. And what I'm worried about is that as challenges come up, teachers again are going to become that proverbial punching bag, which they shouldn't be. I feel like they should be revered in our society. So what I'm worried about is that we're not going to put enough emphasis on the value of teachers and how complex this profession actually is. And it deserves the attention of other professionals.
What is something teachers will have to change because of AI, but you don't want to change?
So one thing that almost every educator is going to have some type of basic AI literacy, particularly with generative AI. I think that's good for most scenarios, but I think it really does put some teachers in a pretty difficult spot because there's really no off-ramp to this one. Like, you kind of have to get some basic core skills, and some teachers are really not in a position to jump in right now. I think they can get there, but what I don't like is that, it seems like it's putting a lot of pressure on teachers that are already stressed. So, that's kind of tough for me to swallow. And that's where I think particular teachers that are going to have a longer learning curve with AI, they're going to need more support, not just people telling them they need to learn it now. They need help, so I really think that we should focus on that.
Last lightning round question. What's a book, movie, or podcast that has nothing at all to do with work, but shapes how you think?
One podcast I listened to that probably no one ever remembers, one of the first, was called the Google Educast. It was the dorkiest thing ever, but it was about 10 years ago, it was a bunch of, maybe more, these Google certified educators when Google for Education first started. And I was kind of new myself, and I just loved listening to other teachers share their stories. And it really did I want to be part of that community. So that was a big one. Nobody's probably ever heard of it, but that got me into this, or helped get me. Definitely
have not heard of that one. That's a good throwback. That's a good throwback.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for the lightning round. We can get into some of the other questions, and I'm just going to kind of start with big picture. Can you describe your job at EdTechTeacher and what EdTechTeacher does?
Right. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, we help teachers, and in the way that we do that is through professional learning experiences. We provide a wide variety of them in different formats, but the main goal is to help support them where they're at, but then make it firmly grounded in sound pedagogical practice, right? So our company has expert educators, instructional designers, and what we try to focus on is how can we leverage technology in the service of learning, right? So you're an expert educator, say you want to focus on, say, inquiry-based learning or mastering or whatever it might be. We take those pedagogical practices, we provide support on those practices, but then also weave in how can you leverage technology to enhance those practices. And a lot of it is through discovery. Like, a lot of teachers maybe just find new ways to do things that they've never heard of through our sessions, or just different ways to think, which is great, because I know teaching can be a lonely profession, right? My first 4 years teaching, I don't think I had one person ever really come in and talk to me about teaching ever or give me feedback. It's very isolating. Wow. So what we can provide is that community, whether it's individual folks that, we had about 17,000 people on our newsletter just because they want to see, what are some resources that we're sharing out. We do a lot of free live webinars. We do online courses. We'll talk a little bit later about a new program we're launching with IBM to provide free training across the country. But yeah, really just helping support teachers, whether they're a sole teacher in a classroom or maybe a whole district wants to make a move. So we also work with school leadership teams to decide, how do we want to scale things? What do we want to practice? Do we want to do a quick pilot? So that's the core way that we help. The other way that we help is also through our partnerships with some of the ed tech companies. So for instance, Adobe for Education, we're a partner with them. And say a school district has an Adobe Creative Cloud license, our team can go in and show teachers like, hey, you might be a second grade teacher. You're not teaching, Adobe Premiere, but you could use Adobe Express to create these awesome projects with your kids in second grade. So it's kind of taking a technology that maybe school already has, but helping them discover different ways that they could use it across the curriculum in really creative ways. It's just really fun work. I enjoy what I do. And it's constantly changing. So, because as the world changes, we change with it, and we help teachers get there.
It's definitely not a boring area of the world that moves at a snail's pace. You are definitely, I would imagine you're learning nonstop.
Right. But I will point here though that there is that clash between the field and the institutions of education. Right. I mean, they move at a glacial pace, right, as far as change. So that's the other thing that we try to help with is how can we get things moving in a responsible way? Because a lot of school districts, they, for whatever reason, things go very, very slow. So what we can do is help come in and say, hey, we're going to ramp these people up. We're going to help them get comfortable and confident in doing this. And then we'll also help you make this a common practice, because what I worry about is equity. Right. And you think about it, in a school, your student's future shouldn't just depend on what individual class they're in. Like, all the teachers should have that same skill set, right? Or at least that same competency. So what I worry about is some districts, like say right now, like the AI piece, maybe they do a 1-year AI cohort and then they're like, okay, we're good. No, you're not. Like, all you did was have that one cohort ramp up and you didn't help anybody else. We also help districts take the things that do work and just help them scale it so then every educator can have access to those practices.
What are that scale piece? I hear you. I mean, sometimes the hardest part is figuring out how to get a foothold to do a new thing. And you can do that hard work of figuring that out. But if you don't go that last kind of mile of figuring out how to replicate that, it's almost like, I don't want to say a waste of time, because some people have really been helped. They're better off.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you think about that skill piece? How do you do that effectively? How does a district or a school do that effectively?
Yeah, I mean, schools do it a lot of different ways. When I did work in a school district, we did do a lot of collaborative work with others in the region. So I think working with different networks to get support helps. But within your district, typically what you need is some type of time commitment. That's the biggest thing. It's time. You have to reserve time for this. And that is by far the biggest barrier. It's not money. It's not funding. It's not, do we know what to do? It's time. Teachers don't have enough time. So if you truly want to scale something, you need to provide them with the time, right? Give them some time to dig in, to try, to work with their peers. If you just keep dumping all these tasks on teachers and then say, oh, learn this new initiative that these other teachers piloted and start doing it next year, that is unfair to the teachers that weren't in that pilot. You need to give them the time and space to dig in and learn with the folks that were in it. And it's hard. I get it. Like, it is tough to figure out what time to devote to this. And I'll take a step back. Time does cost money, right? Because that is part of this. But that is the single thing that I think if districts really want to scale these things, you have to find time for educators and treat them like professionals and give them time to learn this stuff. I think that's how you actually scale these practices.
You talked earlier, you yourself, you were a teacher for 4 years, it sounds like.
Actually, 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah. Yep. I taught in 2 different schools in Connecticut.
What are some kind of core processes or ideas or techniques that you learned as a teacher that you feel are just evergreen? Like, they're just always going to be important. They're always going to be critical. I know most of your job, you are really at this kind of forefront of change. What are the things that never have to change, that shouldn't change?
I think the first is when you're starting any lesson, no matter what it is, anywhere, anything that you're teaching, it's that first 2 to 3 minutes. That first, like, that inquiry hook, that engagement, that relevance, that connection with them. You got to get them in the first few minutes, right? And then they're in, right? So I think if you can really hone that and get kids to lock in and to care about what you're teaching that day, that's going to go a long way. So I think just focusing on that first few minutes. Even think about how kids watch YouTube right now. If they don't finish the first, 7 seconds or something, they're never going to watch it. So you got to get them past 7 seconds. So I'm not saying you got to get past your first 7 seconds of your lesson, but you have to think in that mindset. If you just drone on about your objectives for the day and checking homework and all that crap, and then 10 minutes in, everyone's just sitting there and you wonder why they're bored and don't care. It's because you just blew the first 10 minutes on operational crap. So, and again, it's just part of the nature of schooling. I get it. You have to do that. But one thing that I always really try to do is preserve that first few minutes to really bring everyone together and to get them to care about what we're teaching that day. I don't think that's ever going to go away. The other thing too is I think I was never a fan of, hey, a student didn't learn something, let's just make it really low level and drill them with it for hours on end. I think that's stupid. If the kid didn't get it the first time, how does just going slower and more boring going to make it helpful? Right? It's not. They're not going to want to do that. Fair question. And I saw it happen in high schools all the time. They'd fail algebra, so they put them in remedial algebra, which was like even more boring. And it's just like, how about instead of that, we do like a PBL where like they actually care about the math they might learn? A crazy idea, but I think we spend too much time on the remediation with really basic drill and kill stuff, where really the kids that are disconnected, the kids that aren't engaging, it may not be because they can't do the thing, they just don't care, right? So I think that it's the wrong medicine. Just don't double down on boring stuff. Give them something more authentic. One educator that I follow all the time, Scott McLeod, he's a university professor out in, I think it's University of Colorado. And his whole thing is about, his mantra is make school less boring. But the whole point is like, have that authenticity to it. Have something there, especially with, when you're doing projects, like don't make yourself the audience. Like if you're the teacher and you're the only audience, it's not a great project. The audience should be someone other than just the teacher. So they care. Because honestly, I hate to say it, but they don't really care about just pleasing you all the time as a teacher, but they might care about an outside audience that they're designing for. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I would say those would be the big things for me is inquiry hooks at the beginning, get kids engaged. Don't just double down on remedial stuff and focus more on authenticity, engaging kids and making school interesting for them so they care. Those are things that are universal. That is not going to change with technology.
And those things are so fundamentally human, right? They are about connection and empathy, if I'm understanding, right? Really understanding where the student is and what to do next that's right for that student, and keeping them involved in a way that feels good to them. And that isn't something technology is great at. I know that you need to stay, of course, for your job. You've got to stay ahead of what is happening in the world of technology. I know you've been running EdTechTeacher longer than we have had LLMs at the center of all of our technology conversations.
Yep.
And I can imagine that it's always been a fast-paced job. But now, we're just at a totally different level of pace of change. So how is it that you are able to stay on top of your own learning, stay ahead of where teachers need to be as the world just accelerates so fast? And do you have any tips for the rest of us?
Yeah. It's something that everyone in every field is in this boat, right? This is not unique to education. I think what we need to do, particularly in the education field, is not worry too much about the tech itself, right? Focus more on what the tech does in general. And what we need to do is start to design. Like we need to all put our instructional design hats on, because school is going to be different. It is. And it might take till 2028 to get there, but it will be it fundamentally. And 2028 seems far away, but it's really not. We're almost at 2026. So these kids are going to be living in a much different world very, very soon. So I think if we can just kind of unpack this a bit and say, like, what does this mean for our profession? Just take a second step back. Like, how do we want to teach? How does it align with our values? And then think about how we might want to engage with these tools. That's the big thing, because then you can cut out a lot of the noise. I get probably 50 emails a day with the newest EdTech AI tool. I don't open any of them. Right. So EdTech people, stop sending me that stuff. I don't open them. What is important is to know the fundamental technology. So I think schools should step back and say, all right, what we shouldn't be talking about is these 8 apps. We should be talking about what is generative AI actually, and what does that mean? Right. And I think if we can all kind of start with that fundamental understanding, we start a lot of our beginner workshops with that. We don't talk about EdTech at all for the first hour. Right. It's all just kind of getting a better understanding of, as a former history teacher, I actually go back and I say, hey, when did AI get invented? And a lot of people are like 2022. And I'm like, well, it was actually the 50s. Right. We've been working on this stuff for 75 years. So I think also providing some historical context to this helps people, and it lowers some of the anxiety. And then I think also letting teachers take some control over this, because a lot of the anxiety around AI is the loss of control, right? The fact that we're losing some of our hands aren't always on the wheel now. So with that, I think it's like, all right, we need you to shape how AI looks for you as an educator. Right. So we want you to be confident and comfortable in doing that. And for me, this comes back to that learning piece. When I find articles and research that shows best practices, I try to kind of filter it down and make it very, very practical. as far as what steps can I take as an educator. And that helps me as well, because if I can't really articulate it and explain it, I really don't know it well enough either. Right. And someone that once told me, like, if you can't explain something briefly to somebody, you really don't know it that well. Like, you should be able to consolidate. So I do that. And then as far as the research itself, I just find the smartest people in whatever field I'm studying, and I follow their podcasts. I go to their newsletter. I'll read their books. I'm like, why not? Like, if this person is one of the best in the world at whatever, why don't? So one example is I follow Ethan Mollick's work. You're familiar with his?
I am. Yep.
He was really one of the first educators, I think, that really just jumped out on this and shared how he was doing it. And he even admits, he's like, I don't really know what I was doing at the beginning, but I shared it publicly. So I think getting involved in some of those public conversations around this with the experts and then bringing it to your field helps. I didn't just go out and say, I need to find AI experts in education. I mean, I went AI experts, and then I went, all right, how might this apply in education? Then I went down, how could AI help with education? And then I filtered down more. But I always start with like the smartest people in the field I could possibly find and learn from them, whatever I freely can online. And then I kind of work my way back into like my specific niche.
That is some very good, very applicable advice. I want to go back to something you said about fundamentals. This is a theme that has come up over and over again in my conversations on this show. In different people who have totally different jobs, completely different areas of focus, but this idea, when we start talking about technology in the future, there has been this common notion that the best way to handle it is to make sure we're not abandoning our fundamentals, that we understand them, that we're doubling down on them, that the fundamentals are the things that allow us to be effective with technology, that allow us to stay centered and have a goal and know how to get to it. Because if we don't have our fundamentals, we literally can't use the tools, because then it's just random. We have to have the fundamentals. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and I wanted to highlight that. We talked a little bit already about the dynamics in a district. I'm curious to hear, is there a common mismatch that you see between a district's AI ambitions and the teacher's day-to-day constraints, like prep time or grading load? Or what is that mismatch? Is there a mismatch?
So the biggest disconnect I see right now is really more of a timing thing. But I'll hear a lot of school leaders and district administrators, even people outside of education, say, hey, AI is going to help make teachers' lives easier. It's going to make it better. It might reduce burnout. It might help get more people into the field. Then you go into a classroom, right? And the teachers, spinning around trying to keep kids engaged. The kids are cheating with AI. They're trying to catch them. There's no policy. They're trying to figure all this stuff out. It's kind of chaos right now as far as AI in the classrooms. And part of this is because this was our former, one of our founders, Justin Reich, up at MIT. He actually coins this as an arrival technology, right? So he said most districts, we have rollout technologies where a district will plan things and roll it out over years. AI just arrived. 2022, 2023, it's here now. And districts had no time to really plan a rollout. All they could try to do is randomly block stuff and get AI detectors, which I think should be illegal. But I think they were really scrambling and they've been behind. So I think that's one of the problems, that teachers are kind of caught in the middle here, where districts, and understandably, didn't have a plan for this because it just happened. So districts are now trying to come up with a plan. But in the meantime, the teachers are in the classroom trying to plug the holes in the boat, because there isn't really a clear a widely understood use case for AI at scale yet. It's still in that tinker phase. And there's not a lot of safe tools for kids yet either. It's very limited. It's not like kids should just open up ChatGPT and use the tools anyway, even if it did make sense, because it's not safe.
No.
So I think there's also the disconnect with what can teachers and students even use right now. It's not as much as you'd think, especially for free stuff. Almost everything's trying to charge you or has some type of freemium built in. The only one I even know of is Google Gemini. That's the only one that's included for free for school districts. Everything else is a paid tool. So I think teachers feel a little bit hamstrung on that end. And I actually hear some say that AI is not helping them. It's actually making them more anxious partly because of cheating, but also because how much they're now going to have to learn on top of everything. So it's just a lot at once. So I feel like at the district level, there's a lot of promise and potential, and I get it, but I still feel like teachers are struggling in the class right now to kind of manage through this rocky rollout, if you even want to call that, of AI in education.
I've heard across industries a really similar kind of example or about the conflicting ideas that leaders have and the actual realities on the ground.
Yeah.
Actually, here's another question for you. Do you, in your experience, how familiar are leaders who are responsible for, faculty and students? How much personal experience do they have with AI in your experience, and how much should they have?
I've been surprised at how much they have, frankly. Because this is kind of my second go around with this. Like, my first big thing with districts was like one-to-one computing in the classroom, and that was a big rollout. And back then, like maybe 10, 12 years ago, maybe longer for some districts, a lot of the principals had no idea. They didn't even know what a Chromebook was, and they were leading a Chromebook rollout, right? So there was a very big disconnect. But I almost feel like maybe just because of like COVID and everything that happened during distance learning, I feel like a lot of administrators are more skilled now than they were even 5-10 years ago. It also might be a demographic shift. Maybe there's just more younger folks that maybe they were a principal during a one-to-one rollout 10 years ago. Now they're the superintendent. So I feel like we're getting more leaders in that have experience with technology. So that's a good thing. The one area that no one has experience with, though, is implementing generative AI in the classroom, because it is literally brand new. So that's the thing that even if they are really good at tech, it's new for everyone, no matter who they are. So we actually do a lot of training with just leadership teams, and frankly, it's almost the same training we do with educators. It's not a whole lot different. It's like, what is AI? How does it impact education? But the only spin on that is we also show them how AI can help them perform better as school leaders. And we found that if we can get them using the tools to help them just perform their job tasks better and to learn, then they can translate it better into district policy. So that's been one of our angles, is like, we'll do some workshops with leadership teams, but also show them very concrete examples of how they could use this as part of their leadership skill set.
That's great. I mean, for me, this does feel like a technology that is really hard to understand unless you use it a lot.
You have to try it. You have to use it.
You have to. And unlike other things where if you kind of get it, you get the concept, and if you're responsible for somebody else's work using that technology, you can more or less understand what to ask them, how to direct them, right? How to view their work. And AI it just doesn't work that way. And one of the things that I hear a lot for people in, corporate environments or other environments is that the leader gets very, very excited about AI. They get all hyped up, but they never use it, or they use it very little. And then they have these crazy expectations about what is possible in their organization. And they're expecting that the AI fairy dust is just going to get spread across their employee workforce, and everything's going to get faster and better and higher quality and more efficient. And that is not the way it works.
No.
I am glad to hear that your experience is not quite that with school leaders. That's quite heartening.
Yeah. And I think when I said 2028 earlier, I didn't just make that up. Like, a lot of folks are saying, like, in the workforce, it might take till 2028 until AI adoption really is pervasive across industries. So I think that, like, there's still time to get there. But yeah, I mean, I've been pretty impressed by at least the school leadership teams I've worked with recently, because they're not setting super high expectations yet for how it's being used. I think right now, most districts just want it to be used safely and ethically. Right. They're not using it to, let's raise our test scores 800%. Nobody's saying that. It's really more like, how can we create safe, effective, ethical AI environments where students are preparing for the future? The big thing that they're more not worried, but concerned with is, how is this shaping the future job market for our graduates, especially if you're a high school principal or working with those students? because that is actually changing the content of our courses or even what we teach. Like right now in Rhode Island, we're going to have a new AI CTE pathway that never existed, right? So, and I think that's going to be a normal thing. So I think as that happens, we're even going to have to shift staffing. We're going to have to shift curriculum. So a lot's going to have to shift, but we're ways off. Like we're probably a year or two from that big shift. But that's something that district leaders are going to have to start planning for too, is like even our staff is probably going to change. Like what teachers we have and what positions is going to be different. I remember that happened with, and this isn't a new thing either. There was a wood shop teacher where I was a digital learning director. The wood shop teacher retired. It became the STEM lab, right? So this stuff happened. Like a lot of districts will just take an old program, and usually they won't make the teacher leave, but once they retire or whatever, they'll take it's like, okay, that program was great in 1975. Let's make like a STEM lab or AI or whatever. And unfortunately, that's the way districts work, right? It is what it is. Yeah. But I think the opportunity there, though, is that as those opportunities come up, that's when we can start to rethink and reshape what it is that we're teaching, how we're teaching it, how we staff it. But yeah, I don't think that's changing too fast. Because like if we're going to go off the 2028 thing, like it's going to take a while for like all these industries to really, really fundamentally change. But it's conversations that they should be having now, right? Because if you're in high school now, that is the world you're going to be going into. So they need to start getting ahead of that.
It's just an impossibly moving target. I mean, we've been having this conversation for decades. I mean, well before AI, we've been saying, what are we supposed to be teaching kids about the world? Because the world is not going to look like it does now in 5 years. It's going to look totally different. We always used to hear like half the jobs will be totally different or whatever. We always hear these. And I feel like half is not even close. It's going to be 90% of I mean, I don't know what the number is now, but it is more than half in 5 years. The jobs will be different.
Yeah. I even think like, what am I going to be doing in 5 years? Like, I mean, like everybody's position is going to be different, so.
Yes,
it's interesting. But I also see how that causes anxiety with a lot of people. But I think that the opportunities. Oh, here's one example that you'd appreciate about the mismatch, right? Mm-hmm. I was still teaching in the class, and all of a sudden we got all these posters, and they're like, show these video clips for this point. I was like, what the hell is it? It was called Hour of Code, and that was a huge thing across the country, and maybe like 2010, 11-ish maybe. And the goal was like, we need to teach every kid in the country to learn how to code because that's the future. And we'd have these videos of like Silicon Valley and people on scooters and playing ping pong. And all my kids are like, yeah, I'm going to be a coder. Now look at it. I mean, low-level coders are getting laid off in mass right now. So and honestly, parents are pissed because like, say you were a parent back then and you had your kid get into all this stuff and now they're like, what the heck? So I do get it. It's a problem. It's a challenge, but I think that it's one that we can't ignore either. I mean, we got to keep shifting. I said earlier, like if you're not moving, you're falling behind right now.
Yes. You've just named, this is a triggering subject for me that you just brought up around this incredible push by the tech industry, by tech giants in particular, to teach every kid how to code. And that the message over and over again was, these are what jobs are going to be. And now, as soon as it was possible for them to replace those jobs with technology to do those jobs, they have done that. I am deeply skeptical. I mean, I use these tools. I love technology in general. I'm also very wary and skeptical about the technologies and about the motivations of these companies behind the technologies, especially when it comes to kids. And this one example, just once I saw this sort of what was happening in the last couple of years, I just thought, we just spent 20 years trying to teach every kid how to code. And now those jobs are going away. And it's just infuriating. I will say this, though. Those are still valuable skills. I think if you've learned how to code, it's a creative skill. It's a problem-solving skill. It's a skill that requires, collaboration, cooperation with other people. I mean, it is still valuable. There's still plenty of things, even if you never code, that are probably quite useful. about it. However,
Yeah.
I personally, and also just as an educator, find the kind of arc of that quite frustrating. Because I think it also came at the expense of other things. I think we were teaching those skills when we weren't teaching about other stuff. My kids say to me all the time, why is it that I still don't understand how banking works, or like how to work my personal finances, or what my fundamental human rights are, right? Or how to, basics of human psychology. Why did we get none of those things? And we had all of these other things. These are legitimate questions, far too big to get into in this conversation. But anyway, man, I just got all upset with your answer there. Really got me going.
Yeah. No, there's so many personal connections there. One quick anecdote for those who are watching. I'm going to try to point. So go over there. So that book I wrote was about civics education and how it got squeezed out of public schools starting in the year 2000. And honestly, I think one of the reasons we're in the absolute mess of democracy we are is because we spent 2 decades not teaching civics. It's not the only reason, but it definitely did not help that we have a whole generation of people that don't even understand the fundamentals of our government. And I think part of that is because the public schools let us down on that front. We got rid of a lot of social studies courses. We got rid of civics classes entirely. Part of it was to make room for all the things you were just mentioning. So there's always that give and take. So the point here is that, yes, AI is a big thing. We're moving maybe AI literacy, but do not take out the course that teaches like civil discourse and like how to engage in democracy, for the love of God. Like, keep those important things and maybe think how we can integrate. My thing would be, why don't you just integrate learning about AI into a civics class? Why do you have to have a separate class for it? So
right.
I don't know. So it gets me going a little bit too, because I felt like even just my passion as a subject is history and social studies. It was a history major, and I see it getting pushed aside, and I see what an important subject it is. But I just think as school leaders, the takeaway here is that, you're going to get a lot of people saying to do AI everything over the next 3 years. So I think it's going to be very important to hold the line on those things that you do find like core to your school, core to what you believe in, and not just chase this. I mean, you have to address it, but I would not totally pivot and abandon everything you believe just because AI is changing society. You have to have that fundamental belief system and stick to it.
You have mentioned a couple times that you kind of circled 2028 as a year that we should be thinking about. What are your predictions for 2028?
Yeah. So, first of all, I think the way that we interact with the web and with the internet is going to be fundamentally different. I was actually talking to my buddy this morning. We work out together before school, and I was like, we're going to look back and be like, remember we used to browse on the internet to find information? Do you remember those days? We might be saying that in 2028. So I think things are moving real fast. I also think interacting with these technologies is going to get untethered from what we're staring at right now. We're staring at pieces of glass, and I think that maybe by 2028, we move beyond staring at glass all day. I don't know exactly how that looks. I would be all for that. I spend way too much of my day staring at some type of glass. But I think having some more natural ways to interact with people, and I'm not saying it like Ray-Ban Facebook glasses are the future, but I mean, I'm not opposed if I can not be sitting at a computer all the time, so I think that might be also good for the education field, where maybe we can leverage these technologies and not have to worry about Chromebooks all the time and not have to worry about this. Like, it might just be more of a natural extension of our thinking or what we're doing. And I think that's probably where it's going to go. And then as far as teaching, I think it's not going to change fundamentally from a structure standpoint. I don't see that. I think there's too much of a social role for education. Right. So this whole 2-hour school thing that's going on, I think that's a bunch of garbage. That's not going to scale for public education. But maybe we could replicate how that looks. But I don't see a big shift in the way public school is structured. I think the bigger shift would be what does the school day look like in 2028? That's what I think is going to be different. And I think that's where we're going to be moving towards, I would think, less of the chalk and talk because it's going to be increasingly useless. And it's going to be more about projects, authenticity, designing things. I mean, I would love that future if that's what we were going towards. But I see that as a good thing if we can move in that direction. But we'll see.
Well, it's just so apropos. I have one more question for you. And my last question always comes from a previous guest. And this person, her name's Andrea Flores. Andrea is a great thinker. She's currently working at MIT Sloan. She's a designer. She does a lot of work on lifelong learning. And she said something in our conversation that she talked a lot about shifting from teaching in silos to solving problems, coming into school and solving problems. And this just allows for a cross-disciplinary approach. So it's kind of apropos that this is her question. So let me ask you her question. It is, when AI can personalize every learner's path, who or what ensures that all learners still share a common map of the territory? And what role might teachers play in shaping that shared understanding?
Yeah, so the first part is I don't think I'd want that reality. The first part where you said, can you just repeat the AI personalized for every?
When AI can personalize every learner's path, who or what
we'll stop right there. That part. When AI can personalize every learner's path. I don't like the sound of that. I don't want just some machine spitting out how a path should be pressed for my kid. If I'm in a school classroom with students, if it's some self-paced online course thing, that's different, right? Personalizing an individual experience where it's just individual, that's fine. But I think learning is so inherently social that really it should be the teacher, the educator is setting the context. We're learning this thing together. Then, as we dive in, I see AI as a tool that could personalize the experience for the student as they go through that shared experience. But I don't want the AI designing the whole experience for the kid. I do not want that, right? I would rather the expert educator, we still have curriculum, we still have projects, we still have things that we focus on. You're still driving this. Like there's that element there. I think the AI should come in after and say, all right, maybe this student needs a little bit more support with X and the AI can help them with X. And this student maybe wants to explore this field, so they use AI to research this field. Great. But then we all come back together. And I think that that's a fundamental philosophy that I believe in with AI is it's that human, AI, human, right? That human intuition, that human question. You jump in, AI helps in the messy middle, and then you end with some type of human judgment and reflection. Right. So it's still human. Teacher can drive a teacher. So that's that. The AI would be in the middle to help support that. So I would very rarely support a program that was completely designed and driven for students by an AI tool. I do not support that.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. I could keep going, but we probably both have other things to do in our days, but I could literally keep talking. We should do this again. And
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I think it would be interesting to have a conversation with maybe you and Andrea, too, maybe some point in the future. I think you guys would have a lot of interesting things to talk about.
Excellent. Oh, we'll do it. Jason, thanks so much for having me on. And maybe we'll have you on the EdTechTeacher podcast soon.
I would love that. Yes, please. That would be great. All right. Thank you, Tom Driscoll, for coming on I was going to say the EdTechTeacher podcast, the Learning Experience Operations Show.
Excellent. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you for listening, and a huge thanks to our guest today. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends and colleagues. I'm Jason Gorman. I'm the founder and CEO of Jackrabbit Learning Experience, where we help organizations of all kinds make learning better through a clear, repeatable process that is future ready. If any of this resonates with you, just keep tuning in and please join the community we're building. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time.